Move now to an issue that has been dominating headlines for the last few days, and that's the controversy at Stellenbosch University. That video emerging of Tiens du Toit urinating on the possessions of Babalo Ndwayana. We know that Babalo then opened a case against him, laid a complaint at the police station, and there has been a big protest today at the university with many students just saying this cannot go on. We also know, sadly, that there's a case of rape that has been reported, handed over now to the police, but what we understand is that a male student has been taken into custody in relation to that crime. I'm joined now by Stellenbosch University Vice-Chancellor for Strategy, Global and Corporate Affairs, Professor Hester Klopper. Professor, this is a difficult time for the university. When you first saw that video, what was your first thought?
Of course, as the management of the university, it is indeed a moment that we will forever most probably regret, that something to the extent of that could have happened on our campus. We have been very clear in terms of that is not the type of behavior, the responses we've seen, and the hurtfulness of such an act that has taken place on our campus.
Do you believe the act was racist?
I honestly cannot think of any other way that we can look at it, especially if we look at South Africa, where we find ourselves. Racism is well and alive, and we need to recognize that. As universities, being a microcosm of of South Africa, it is well and alive. And I think it's at our university, within the sector, within our country, that is where we find ourselves.
What's going to happen to Tiens du Toit? We know he's been suspended. Is Stellenbosch University going to expel him?
Well, we're in a country that is important that we stay. It's a state of law, and we need to make sure that we follow processes, because ultimately when we have a final outcome and that gets tested in the court, we need to make sure it will stand. So what we've seen today is that there was a hearing in terms of determining that the suspension is continued while the formal disciplinary processes will take place further. And we have just today, our Rector and Vice-Chancellor, Professor Wim de Villiers, has communicated to the campus community and exactly highlighting the process that we are following. And we would most probably, for me to say, will he be expelled? For now, the suspension remains, and that will stay intact till we've had the final outcome of the full disciplinary hearing.
What support is being offered to Babalo Ndwayana? He's found himself thrust into the middle of this awful situation. His dignity has been impugned, but a very, very stressful situation for him indeed.
So we've got a process at the university where our Senior Director for Student Services and our Dean of Students has been involved, hands-on, in terms of providing that support. We've got student counselling services that have reached out, and he has indeed been taken care of as much as he wanted to be. I think it's also a very difficult time for him in terms of the attention that's been given to the case, and also for him handling this. We've provided support from the university side.
How long before a decision is made about Tiens du Toit?
Well, the process, as I've alluded to earlier, was today the case in terms of keeping up with the determination that we should go through the disciplinary process, that the outcome is yes, it is. And there's a formal process around this. So as soon as he's been served with the notice, he's got 72 hours then to respond. And from there on, a formal process will follow, which of course, it stipulates within our rules that he's got then 10 days to provide or to prepare his case before the hearing. So that, I think, gives an idea of the length of the process.
Do you see this racist act as fairly isolated within Stellenbosch, or a sign that despite the work that you've done to root out racism on campus, that there's actually still an institutionalized problem?
I don't think this is only a Stellenbosch University problem. It plays out in terms of what we've seen this week, and this is not the type of behavior we want to see anywhere in our country. But as the minister yesterday evening in another interview indicated, this is a systemic problem within higher education, but also within our country. And I think the challenge for us is to, as collectively, both in the academic world, working with societies, to really start confronting the issues around racism, to make sure that we get to a point where there is indeed social cohesion without any discrimination at any level. And it's clear to me, even if we look at internationally, how it's playing out. I mean, just in the past couple of days, we've seen the incident in New York, in Buffalo City. And I think what we've seen around the world is these racist issues that's playing out.
Absolutely crucial. And I want to now move to an issue that is another massive problem in South Africa that has become what everyone calls a pandemic, and that is the issue of gender-based violence. The news coming out today that a female student was raped, I understand on campus, if I'm not mistaken, allegedly by a fellow student. Now, this is a sensitive one to handle, but what can you tell us about what happened when it happened?
So we became aware as the university management yesterday of this incident. We immediately acted on making sure that we could get the detail, and especially to support the victim. So my colleagues within student counselling as well as in student services supported the victim. Of course, she confirmed that this was the case, and they supported her on her request to lay the charges at the South African Police Services. And I must say, we really need to thank SAPD for the way in which they have really supported us. In subsequent actions, the student yesterday, so within the university, we also have process where she can lay a charge at our equity unit. And what she yesterday decided is that she wanted some time, but today she actually came forth and said that she would like to be supported, and that process has also now taken place. So both a criminal case as well as then an internal case with our equity unit.
Now, students are obviously deeply distressed and unhappy about this, the news of this rape, first and foremost, but also this whole week, this awful incident involving Tiens du Toit. I would imagine you interact with the students a lot on campus. You get a sense of the mood. Is there a sense of trust in the way Stellenbosch University is handling this from the students? Or are you starting to see divisions and battle lines being drawn?
Well, let me start off by saying that as a rectorate, we are committed to work with the students. There's been a couple of meetings over the past couple of days. We started off on Monday where we met with our SRC as well as some leadership from SASCO, student body. Subsequently, we've yesterday had the installation of our new chancellor, where once again our rector and the chancellor met with the SRC, really discussing and thrashing out exactly how do we move collectively. Today, we've seen some actions on campus as a rectorate. We once again went out, we met with the students, we received their a statement, and of course our rector also made some very pertinent points on a statement that we have issued. So I would want to see us moving together collectively and not allowing different fractions in this very, very difficult time for the university. But I also think it is a point for, as a country, to take lessons from this and say how within the higher education sector do we learn from one another and that we take this forward collectively.
Some people have said, how can born-frees who have the benefit of history, who were born in a democratic South Africa, still engage in such racist acts? Do you blame the parents?
I think there's a deeper issue within our society, and part of that is the way that most probably some of our schooling systems are set up. We are not at a stage in basic education that I think we are using the opportunities to engage across different areas within our own country. And if I say areas, it's the intersectionality of people that's not like me, whatever that may mean for individuals. And I think what we often see play out at universities is how we have seen some of these practices that has taken place in schools, and it escalates to universities. And we need to find ways of how do we break the cycle. So I indeed think this is a society issue at a much broader level.
Yeah. And you know what's interesting is that I've spoken to people who are at Stellenbosch sort of in the 90s, and they've spoken as people of colour of how difficult it was, and that sense of that you don't belong here. What active steps are you taking to make sure that your black students have that agency, have that power, have that sense of, I deserve to be here, and not a sense of, oh, you're lucky to be here, which I think is something that prevailed in the past, and I really hope it doesn't prevail today?
Well, we have, of course, a couple of years ago, any initiation practices have been absolutely scrapped. Because what we've seen is that is the beginning of people feeling excluded in some in those practices. So we are very clear that there's a zero tolerance in terms of that. In terms of being the opportunities at our residences, I mean, it's not for any specific group. It is about a collective where our students find themselves in a space where they feel this is their home. And I don't even want to use the words to create a welcoming environment. This is the home of all students, of anyone who wants to study at Stellenbosch University. And as a university, we see ourselves as a national asset, and that is what we believe. We are providing for any student who wants to be a student at Stellenbosch University. There's, of course, much work to be done. If we listen to our student body, if we listen to the outcry of some of the students today, it's clear to us that there is lots of work to be done. But as we've said to our student leadership, we as a collective is willing to work together. And we need to learn from one another. We don't always get it right. But in humility, as the leadership of the university, we are willing to work with our academics, to work with students, to provide the space where everyone feels this is my home.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's hope we get a speedy resolution to this issue to show that any acts of racism will not be tolerated, and let's also hope that this young woman who was violated is going to be properly looked after so that those heinous acts don't occur on campus as well. Thank you very much for your time this evening. It's much appreciated. That was Professor Hester Klopper, Stellenbosch University Vice-Chancellor for Strategy, Global and Corporate Affairs, telling us that all initiation, for example, absolutely banned. Nothing that can make any student feel that they do not belong on a campus. She also says that they today extended the suspension of Tiens du Toit, that's the student who was caught, filmed urinating on the possessions of Babalo Ndwayana. He's got 72 hours to respond, and then a decision will be made about his suspension. Stay with us on eNCA.